Okay, so let me start with the introduction and what this course is, and how I designed this course basically. And I'll also talk about CKA syllabus, what they have in their syllabus, what we are to cover in the syllabus. Okay, we'll share my screen quickly and then we'll start with this. So let me know if you see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see.
Okay. So my name is Nitin and I have more than 20 years of experience. Okay, and I have been working in this cloud and DevOps thing since last 6 and 7 years, 6 or I believe more than 7 years now, right? And I started this journey of Kubernetes, I think back in 2015, and I have a lot of experience in Docker, Kubernetes, DevOps, automation, right? Automation using Ansible, Terraform. I'm Ansible certified. I'm Terraform certified, right? And I'm CK with respect to Kubernetes. Let's come to Kubernetes directly. So in Kubernetes, there are three certification available currently: CKAD, CKA, and CKS. So CKAD stands for Certified Kubernetes Administrator, so application developer, right? So this is the developer one, and this is for administrator, so who are coming from infra background. Basically they used to go for the CK1, and CKS is mainly stands for security, so certified Kubernetes security. And one should be certified either in CKA or CKAD to appear for CKS. That is the prerequisite. So we can start with CKAD or CKS. Sorry, CKA. Both are fine. So it doesn't mean you are from infra and don't know anything about development. You can still go with CKAD. So there is very less difference when we compare CKAD with CKA. So CKA we have topics like RBAC, basically controlling access to different users and groups, and network policies, right? So these are some other topics which are added when it comes to CKA as compared to CKAD. And CKAD, I think 80% of the course is exactly same as we do cover in CKAD and CKA, except few things like installation, configuration, upgrade, right? So mainly because this is focused on administration of Kubernetes. So these are the things which you will see as a difference when it comes to CKAD and CKA. And CKS is purely on security side. So how do we secure our Kubernetes environment, right? So this is in this course and in this certification, you will um, learn about securing the Kubernetes environment. And for your knowledge, I am certified in CKAD, CKA, CKS, all of them. I did certification of CKAD back in 2015 or 16, I believe. And then I went ahead and did the certification for CKA. And 2 years back, I did the certification of CKS as well. So I'm certified in all of them. And I have other lot of certification also. I have very good exposure on Azure and AWS both, and I have been into this cloud journey since last couple of years now. So you can understand that you are not in wrong hand. So this is what it is at a high level. And now let's come to what is the course and what we are going to cover in the CKA certification and exam. So if you just type CKA on Google, you will see the syllabus and curriculum onto this website. This is CNCF, this is Cloud Native Computing Foundation. So if you just click on here, you will see the costing and everything. So $395 is the cost for the certification. You can register for exam directly from here, and this is the weightage of each domain. So cluster architecture, installation, configuration is going to be 25%. Workload and scheduling, your load onto Kubernetes is going to be 15%. Services and networking is 20%. Storage 10%, and troubleshooting is 30%. So this is how they divided the entire course into multiple domains with respect to weightage also. And some exam resources, candidate handbook, exam tips, right? So if you go and buy the course directly from from CNCF, so I think it will be not this, because this is only the exam fee, right? So if you go for course also, it is going to be around $600 something. But if you only wanted to appear for exam, so $395 is the cost which you need to pay. And you can see sometime that they publish the promo code so that you can get some discount also. I see multiple times when there is a day like Black Friday or something, or Good Friday, right? So those period of time, or maybe New Year, right? So you will see 50%, sometimes 40% discount available. You can opt for that also. And once you register for exam, it's not like you have to go and sit in exam as soon as possible. No. So you can appear in exam within 1 year after buying this exam, and after registering for exam basically. So if you buy it today is 28th of August, you are okay to give exam before 28th of or 7th of August 2023. That too is fine. So I think what people generally do is they used to go and register the exam with the promo code, whatever they get as a good deal. And once they are prepared for exam, they basically went ahead and schedule the exam and sit for it, right? So this is how generally students do. Okay, now this is a CKA, right? So I discussed about the weightage and the domain. Now let's go and see the content which we will cover as part of this course. So this is gonna be a training duration, 48 hour. Basically, within this time period, I'll be able to complete this course. And this is the prerequisite. So basic understanding on Linux, Docker and YAML. So this is what I am expecting you to learn or maybe read yourself before you and join this course, right? So I am expecting that you are having some basic understanding of Linux command. It's not like I want you to be expert in Linux. At least you should know how to list the file, how to list the directories and all, and how to copy and how to move the files, how to create a file, how to use VIM, right? So something like that. Very basic command you should be familiar with. And Docker and YAML, though I will cover Docker from very much beginning, but still I want you to learn something about Docker, what Docker is and what can we do with Docker, right? So just before starting this course, this is the prerequisite which I want everybody to go through first. And the YAML is nothing, it is basically uh, the markup language, yet another markup language. So there is a proper syntax for writing the code in YAML. You can just go for half an hour YouTube session for YAML as how do you write code in YAML syntax. That's easy one. It's not much complicated, but yeah. So this is the prerequisite, and learning objective of this course is basically you will learn about as how do you install self-managed and fully managed Kubernetes cluster, how do you troubleshoot a cluster based on multiple scenarios, and how do you configure network policies to enable or restrict communication between the pod, how to secure Kubernetes cluster, and how to configure network on the Kubernetes cluster. So these are the learning objective for this entire course. Let me know if you have any questions so far, guys.
Yeah, hi Nitin. Deepak here.
Yeah, Deepak.
So I just wanted to ask one thing. Like we are covering the certification course, but what about the real-time scenarios and real-time projects? Are you covering all that also?
See, while covering and while we will build the understanding on the topics, I'll relate those with the real time scenarios so that you can basically, if you get a chance to work on Kubernetes in a project, you can start connecting the dots immediately rather. it is not when I will go through these topics which I mentioned here, so I will do the demos, and also I will relate each and every topic with the real time scenario, so that you are basically familiar with those things and you can connect the dot instantly, rather going through the notes and understanding it again, right? So that's what my teaching style is. I will not just go and focus on Kubernetes certification and make you prepare for certification. I will basically go through each and every concept and correlating those topics with the real time scenarios. Right? Let us say I'm talking about network policy. First, I will tell you what network policy is, what is the requirement, what are the use cases, and based on my experience, because I had already implemented those scenarios in multiple projects from my side. So I'll give you some examples of mine also. There was a situation, so client was requested this and that, right? And that was the reason we started thinking about network policy, and this is what we can do, and these are the use cases. I hope you are following.
Yes.
Right, and
Yes. Yes.
yeah, I will give you some GitHub links also, which you can basically follow, and maybe start building a project on Kubernetes also. That too is fine. So maybe machine learning project if you want to deploy on Kubernetes. So I can give you some GitHub links which are very good, and you can build your knowledge, and you can understand as how do you deploy any machine learning model onto Kubernetes and start accessing that, right? So you know bits and pieces I can give you, but you know the experience, working in Kubernetes, I can give you, but the the use cases for each company is totally different. So I won't be able to like make you expert in all the scenarios, but yeah, I will give you all the top understanding on all the topics, so that you can connect the dots later, and basically show the confidence working in Kubernetes to your management, to your company, something like that. Make sense?
Yes.
Hi,
Yes.
Nitin. I have few questions.
Yeah,
That
yeah, please.
DevOps, yeah, for DevOps, how much Kubernetes will be helpful in DevOps? Means the knowledge of Kubernetes and all. How much it will be helpful for the DevOps career?
Correct. So nowadays, basically, let me go beyond. I think let me do one thing. So let me start this journey and how this Kubernetes comes into picture and why people are now lean toward this Kubernetes, right? So initially, when everything was on physical data center, right? So we were facing a lot of challenges there, right? So the deployment, and you know about it, right? Why we moved onto cloud. So that I think I don't need to even explain. So that time we had moved on to cloud, and multiple application, multiple services are now moved onto cloud because of scalability, high availability, and basically the security, right? There are so many things which clients started considering, and they moved out from physical data center hassles to cloud, and now the life is easier. So whenever you want, you can scale it up. Whenever you don't want, you can basically scale it down. Based on the workload, you can run your compute, right, with the help of cloud. And second thing is pay as you go model, right? So that's where uh, that thing comes in. And after that, now we are moving into Kubernetes. Why? So Kubernetes is basically, first of all, very, once it is set up, so installation and configuration may be difficult. Installation and configuration initially for Kubernetes may be difficult, right? But once it is set up correctly, and once it is basically uh, set up in your environment, maybe let us say you are using AKS, that is Azure Kubernetes Service, okay, or EKS, that is Managed Kubernetes, that is Elastic Kubernetes Service in AWS. right? And that was Azure. So once you had set up a Kubernetes environment in one of these cloud, or maybe there are other options also, like for Google, it is GKE. Right? So once you had set up the Kubernetes environment in your project, then basically migrating your workload from maybe on-prem to Kubernetes is very, very easy. And the benefit what we are getting using Kubernetes is you can, first of all, it is very, very fast to deploy your application when you are working in DevOps. Answer to your question, right? So if you are deploying anything on normal VMs, or let us say physical what is that, physical machine, right? So deployment is not much faster as compared to Kubernetes. Kubernetes makes it much faster when we are deploying anything on Kubernetes, because the container underneath, it will just go and create the container, and that container will be running as a compute to deploy your workload on, and you will be able to access that. And if you don't need, you can just go and scale it down, right? So scaling down, scaling up, right? So that is also very, very easy and very, very fast. Okay, fast. And the microservices nowadays, if you see the examples of microservices, those are now basically targeted onto Kubernetes rather deploying onto a normal VMs. Right. And there is one more thing which I would like to say here. So Kubernetes versus micro, or you can say serverless. Right. So nowadays Kubernetes are focusing on serverless too much, and they are releasing so many services which are basically serverless, where you don't need to even think about underneath workload and all. But Kubernetes, yes, you still need to manage the worker node, and you still need to configure the auto scaling on your own. But serverless, you don't need to even worry about auto scaling or scale down, scale up, nothing. So everything is being handled by cloud themselves. But still, when we talk about flexibility, and when we talk about having more access to the environment, serverless will not give you that kind of access, right? So you won't be able to log in into any compute, because there is no server at all, right? But Kubernetes, you can always log in into worker node if you really want to troubleshoot from the worker node side. So that is the flexibility which we have there with Kubernetes. But serverless, we don't have that, right? And there is another big difference when we are using serverless and Kubernetes. So serverless, you don't have any control on compute and compute power and RAM, memory power, right? And it is likely that your workload is on the peak. Let us say Diwali or any festival is coming, and you are deploying your services on serverless services, then you may face some challenges with respect to performance, right? But with respect to Kubernetes, if you had considered everything upfront, then definitely there will be very, very less chance that you will meet any kind of performance issues. Right. So I'm just, trying to give you all the aspect, why Kubernetes, why not serverless, why not just VMs or cloud in maybe EC2 or virtual machines in cloud, why not data centers, physical data centers, right? So Kubernetes, first thing is basically it is very, very fast for deployment. And in DevOps, actually, the fast thing, doing something very fast is very, very important piece, right? And when you want to tear down your entire infrastructure, it is very, very easy and very, very quick in case of Kubernetes as compared to other environment. Because now let us say you want to launch a machine, so it will take at least 4 or 5 minutes to launch, right? But Kubernetes, it is just about launching a container. Launching a container will take just microsecond. Okay. Sometime you don't want to basically keep your application down for even minutes, right? So Kubernetes is definitely adding value there. Are you following any? Uh, I think I answered your question.
Yes, yes, yes. I got it. other thing is, can we use Kubernetes with serverless architecture or something? Serverless services or something?
No,
Is it
these are all
possible?
totally different, right? So when you say serverless, and what are those services in cloud? Like, what is a service
Lambda,
serverless, right? So like S3 is a serverless service, like
yeah,
your ELB.
Lambda or something. Yeah,
ELB is also a serverless.
correct.
Lambda is a serverless, right? There is no server at all. And in Kubernetes, you can basically use Kubernetes along with Fargate. So if you talk about AWS, so we have we can basically launch a Kubernetes cluster with Fargate. Fargate is nothing. It is like your serverless workload where you are not managing anything and you are still running your workload on Kubernetes, right? So there you will not get access to login into underneath machine. There is no machine running. You are not managing any machine. It is being managed by cloud themselves, right? So Kubernetes plus Fargate is one option, right? And in Azure, if you talk about, so that is Azure Container Instance, ACI. So that is again basically serverless compute running within your Kubernetes. Make sense?
Oh, okay, got it. Thank you. Other question is, for this course, do we need AWS account as a prerequisite? Means, and any machine requirement, that laptop requirement or something, the RAM or
Yeah, let's discuss on that to this spreadsheet. I mentioned that. So hardware requirement is nothing. You just need to have a laptop, and software requirement you have to install Docker desktop installed on a laptop, and you should have subscription of either AWS or Azure. And if it can be free subscription also, that too is fine. I don't want you to basically buy a subscription. So free tier Azure I would recommend, because Azure free tier you will get some credit, and AWS EKS if you launch you may need to pay, but if you just go with Azure AKS cluster you don't need to pay anything even for control node, right? So I would suggest you to create a subscription in Azure, and start playing the resources there. And also when you are comfortable running your workload in Azure, basically, you can do the same in AWS also. It's not like you know AKS but you don't know EKS, right? So these are the services which I was talking about, right? So if you are comfortable running your workload in AKS, then you can very much run your workload on EKS as well if you get a chance, right? So services are very much similar. It is just about the cloud. You know, just give me a minute, please. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
hello?
So
Yeah, I can hear you.
okay. Yeah. Right.
Sorry
And
for my background noise. Sorry.
that's fine. That's
Uh,
fine.
yeah,
Right.
kids.
And one more thing which I would like to highlight. So if you go on to Udemy, right, I have two courses already launched in Udemy. So this is Azure Kubernetes Service AKS Deep Dive. This one I launched recently. If you click on the course, and now that I think there is a sale also going on. So this is basically the course content, but this is not something which I am covering over here, right? So I just wanted to highlight that also. It's not that you know I'm having less knowledge. So I have published some of the courses in Udemy also, right? For you guys, if you really want, maybe after this course, if you want to learn AKS deep dive, so you can opt for this course, and you will get definitely some ideas on the other topics which I will not be covering within the course, right? So this is totally with respect to AKS. If you do want to deep dive on AKS, okay, this is not CK course. It is Azure Kubernetes Service deep dive. Okay, custom.
Okay.
Yeah, this is all custom designed by me, and I started from very beginning. What is AKS? How do you launch AKS cluster? Very very basic thing, and then slowly I'm going into advanced topics. And it is, if you see, all the topics are demo, right? So a lot of time I'm spending on demos only, right? So you can go for you can look for this, see some previews. If you like, go and subscribe that. And in this CK course, these are the topics which I will cover. So I'll start with basically core concept, the difference in between VM and container, Docker, create image, deploy a container, Kubernetes architecture, and define all Kubernetes component. This is 4-hour course, and this is purely theoretical concept, except installation of Docker and making you understand about the image and deploying the container. Rest, basically the architecture, how Kubernetes works, right? What are the components of Kubernetes? I will cover all these in this 4-hour session. Then second day, I will cover about pod. What is pod? What is the life cycle of a pod? Multi-container pod with all the use cases, real-time scenarios, init container, how init container works with actual use cases. Okay, and then I will cover about how do you run the command inside the pod? How do you set up some environment variable, and what are those use cases where you need to use environment variable within your pod? What is the config map? What is secret, right? So these things I will cover in 4 hour in third day. Fourth day I will cover Kubernetes namespace. How do you basically apply some limit range or quota onto your namespaces? What is the readiness and liveness probe? Right, so I'll spend 4 hour again. So each session is 4 hour, and then I'll discuss about replica set deployment, self-healing, scaling of workload, explaining HPA, VPA, and then cron job pod, explaining about static pod, daemon set, stateful set, logging, monitoring solutions in Kubernetes. How do you basically log your or aggregate your logs onto a central logging management system, right? And how do you do some kind of analytics and doing the troubleshooting, and how do you monitor your workload on Kubernetes? Then I'll discuss about etcd, what etcd is, and how do you take the backup of etcd, how do you restore the backup, authentication, authorization, RBAC, right? So if you see, all the topics are in very much detail, which I will cover. And then we have Kubernetes service and type, networking, core DNS, port networking, Nginx ingress controller, ingress rules, rules and policies, right? Network policies, security context, use of storage in Kubernetes. How do you use storage, and how do you basically uh, decide which type of storage should be used for what kind of workload? So these are the things which I will cover in this topic. Then we have troubleshooting, where we will do the troubleshooting of application failure, worker node failure, network failure. So we will cover those scenarios, right? Then we will have open a policy agent, right? What is OPA? And Helm chart deployment, Kubernetes dashboard, Prometheus Grafana monitoring using operator, Lens monitoring tool, and then finally we will cover about Kubernetes CIS benchmarking. So how can we basically do the benchmarking of our Kubernetes with respect to security, right? So then we'll just finish the course with question answer session, right? So this is how I designed this course, and this is having some advanced topics also, if you have noticed, right? So like CIS benchmarking, Helm chart, and Prometheus Grafana, Lens monitoring tool, right? So these are the new advanced topics which I always prefer to cover in CKA, right? So these are the modules, and not only this, I have one more course here. If you want, if you are interested, you can basically search for chaos engineering, and yeah, this is one other course which I have. This is only 2.5 hour course, and here this is on basically chaos engineering. How do you run chaos engineering experiment onto your Kubernetes? Starting from what chaos engineering is, history, phases, principles, then features, and deep dive with all the examples, with the resource files, right? If you want to see, I have uploaded a GitHub repo also there, right? And then basically lot of examples are there which you can go through and understand chaos engineering in detail. So total 27 lectures, and I have been getting question answer also there, which I am answering, right? So yeah, just at a high level, if you are interested for chaos engineering with chaos toolkit, you can go for this also. Any questions so far?
Uh, yes. So, Kubernetes service, where we use it more for web applications or for database applications also, the backend applications.
Earlier, I think couple of years back, everybody was hesitant launching or provisioning their services on basically specifically the database services on Kubernetes because it was not, I think, that much stateful, right? But now it is stateful in nature. You can deploy your databases also on Kubernetes and still let your workload running fine, right? So that is also possible. And now I see lot of people are basically, let us say, if you are already running your database in RDS. I'm taking an example of AWS, right? And you don't want to move everything on AKS or sorry, Kubernetes, EKS, right? So you can run your stateless application onto your Kubernetes and run your or maybe keep your databases running inside cloud services like RDS, that too is fine. So I'm talking about hybrid kind of architecture here, where you have database running in cloud native RDS service and stateless services, maybe web layer or application layer is running on Kubernetes. So this hybrid architecture is also possible. So it is all depend upon how your business says and what kind of proposal you are giving, and do you think any issue migrating everything from cloud to Kubernetes, or you just want everything, you just want database to be running or to be continued running onto cloud and only want it to run stateless application onto Kubernetes. So it depend upon. Sometime I see it is always a hybrid approach. Sometime I see people used to prefer Kubernetes for everything, even for databases. So I cannot just say that it is always good to migrate everything on Kubernetes and forget about anything else. No, that is not a right statement. So it could be hybrid approach also. You can still run your database onto cloud and application and presentation layer onto Kubernetes.
Okay, thank you. And other question is, how difficult it is to learn? How it will be? The learning curve will be how it will be. Is it steep or time taking or something?
No, it's not that much complicated. So when I started, I can give you my example. So when I started learning this, I'm from infra background. I have very uh, good knowledge on infra. I'm expert in basically running Linux commands and all. So then when I started this journey, initially it was a bit difficult for me because that time the resources were not available. But now that there are so many resources available on web, you can go and check so many things on YouTube, on other learning portals, right? But now I think it's not much complicated as long as you are coming from infra background. If you have some basic knowledge on Linux, right? And if you maybe spend some time understanding the syntax of YAML, then it is very very easy because if you know deployment, then understanding next concept is very very easy, right? So all the concepts are basically interrelated, and once you know the architecture and once you are uh, you know uh, once you build the basic understanding on Kubernetes, it would be very very easy for you to understand. But if you don't know even basic and start jumping and directly deploying your workload onto Kubernetes, you will feel that it is a bit difficult. So if you are following the right sequence and if you build the basic uh, you know strong, then I would say it is very very easy.
Okay, basic means YAML and Docker and Linux.
Correct. Though
Those
I
those
will
basic.
Though I will start with very, very basic, I'll make you understand what Docker is, what is container, what is the difference in between container, VM. I will definitely make you understand. I'll make a couple of images, will basically push those images to some registry, will create some containers, will manage those containers, stop, start, kill, right? I'll show you everything, right? So 95% of the course is demo focused, right? So it's not like I'll just go and show you some PPTs and we'll go to the documentation, we'll read the documentation and we'll just move on to the next topic. No, that's not my style of teaching. My style of teaching is totally different when I just go and do something by show you something by practical. If I don't show you something by practical, then that is not making sense to me also, right? So my always you know intention is to show you all the things by practical, right? So I will start with very, very beginning, from like what is Docker, what is container, how do you stop, how do you start, how do you kill, how do you recreate, right? And then slowly I will be jumping into Kubernetes. We'll start creating pod, replica set, deployment, stateful set, daemon set, right? And we'll look into it from all the aspects, right?
Okay. And do we need to have Python knowledge or
No,
any other
no,
programming language,
no,
at
no,
least for automation or something?
no, you don't need to. Python is totally different. There is no use of Python here.
Okay, for Kubernetes and all.
No,
Because I know Python, but do we need have extensive knowledge of Python or
no,
something?
no, no. You
That is
don't need. The Python is totally
okay.
different. Yeah.
Okay, you got it. Thank you.
Nitin, one question here. By any chance, are you covering GCP also? Because uh, right now, Google Cloud Computing with the Kubernetes is very much in demand in the market. So, is by any chance, or it is similar for AKS and EKS?
It is very much similar. So as I said earlier, so if you are expert in EKS, AWS EKS, then you are expert in other two also. It's not like you have to start from very beginning to understand other service, right? So it's like your EC2, right? So if you know EC2 running in AWS, then how much time you will take to learn virtual machine in Azure? Only I think a half hour or maybe 15 minutes or maybe sometime it is 5 minutes, because service is totally same, the architecture is same, functionality is same, right? So maybe I would say that the look and feel will be different, right? So there the console is different, some networking concept can be different, right? Because the cloud cloud provider networking architecture could be different, right? But in nutshell, the cloud, like after launching the Kubernetes cluster, when you will connect to Kubernetes cluster and start deploying your application, that era is totally same. There is no difference as such there, right? So you will use kubectl to connect to Kubernetes cluster. Doesn't matter if it is GKE, AKS, or EKS, right? So kubectl is the utility, and all the commands are also same, right? So you will run kubectl get port, get node, get deployment, get replica set. All the commands are also same. So it is only the difference will only come when you are launching the cluster, and launching the cluster is one time activity. Okay, it's not like every day you will be launching multiple cluster, even in real environment, right? Once the cluster is launched, it is launched. What you will do on day-to-day basis, you will be deploying your application maybe through CI/CD pipeline on daily basis, or maybe directly using kubectl. That is the thing which you will do on day-to-day basis, and that is exactly same. There is no difference if it is AKS, EKS, or GKE.
Okay.
Any question?
Yeah, Nitin. It seems like everything is perfect syllabus, and I think we are in also in good hand. But just my little doubt is like we are not from the Kubernetes and Docker background. So initially we want to go and hunt a job in Kubernetes and Docker. Then what kind of challenges we can face, because we should have to have hands-on at least for 6 months or 1 year for getting a good grasp on the services, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I'll start with very beginning. So as I said, so it's not like I will just directly go and launch a Kubernetes cluster in front of you and then we'll start running the commands. It's not my way of teaching. So if you are still not confident talking to me, or maybe if you're still not convinced, I already explained you, right? I have two courses in Udemy.
Yes.
You can look for those, and there are some preview lectures also, and you will understand what my teaching style is. And there is a YouTube channel also which I run, so there also you can see some videos uploaded by me, right? And you will know who am I, and what type of how do I teach, what is my teaching style. And there are a lot of comments also, you will see, and I'm answering those comments back to the students.
Yes,
So
absolutely. I'm not doubting you. I'm doubting myself. Like we have to have some like experience for like 6 months or 1 year.
I understand, but
Yeah.
the only thing what you need to do is you have to cooperate with me, and you have to basically spend some time on yourself. Let
Okay.
us say I'm basically setting up the lab, right? So if I go ahead and explain everything on to this first topic or first day, right? Next
Okay.
day, if I ask a couple of questions and if I talk about because these are some all the topics are interrelated. If you couldn't understand what is code, then you won't be able to, the rest of the course is waste for you, you know honestly speaking.
Yes. Yes.
If you don't know what is a Docker, what is container, the very first lecture, that what is Kubernetes architecture, so then I think you should exit. You shouldn't continue with the course. You can just leave the course, because everything is interrelated. If you don't know namespace, then understanding replica set and deployment is waste. So all the topics are interrelated. You have to work very hard when I'll be doing this entire course, and you should be listening me very carefully with full focus, and you should do your hands dirty along with me, maybe during the class or after the class.
Sure. Sure. And one more, are you going to provide a recorded session also? So if
Yeah, recording will be provided. Yeah,
okay, okay, yeah, got it.
recording will be provided, and I will basically encourage you to install Docker Desktop onto your laptop, and start playing, start running, or maybe do the labs along with me. When I'm doing, you also do the same and raise your questions. I'm expecting a lot of questions from the students when I do teach, and I really don't like uh, a class where there are no students coming back to me with their questions. I don't want to be basically uh, single direction session. I want bi-directional session where students
Yes,
are
yes.
also interested and they are basically throwing a lot of questions. What is that? What is that? What is that? Don't do anything. Today we are going to learn this only. Just stop there. I don't want to do anything new until I understand this, right? So I also like that. I don't want to go in hurry and complete all the topics as soon as possible. I want you to be expert in one topic before we switch the next topic. Okay.
Okay. And is it possible to conduct class offline for you? Means, is it possible for you to conduct class offline?
Guys, no, I'm um, No, that will not be possible. It is online only.
Okay. For some days or something,
No, not
once in
even
a
a
month.
not even a hour.
Okay.
Yeah, it will be online only, and there is no other option. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, if no question, then we can just close the call for now. And hello, you
Yeah,
can just let
Yes.
Radiant know about your feedback if you want to continue with the course. Yes, no, whatever your decision is, you just let Radical, sorry, not Radiant, so Radical know about your feedback and so that we can start with this. Okay. Okay. If no question, then I think we can close the call. Would like to see responses from you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank,
sure.
thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks for your time. Thank you. Bye.